Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. We have some breaking news in NFL free agency. Some crazy things went down yesterday. We're recording this on March 10th. That is Tuesday, the day after free agency pretty much opened. It was the legal tampering period, and a bunch of names were listed and signed to new teams, and some went back to the same team. So we're going to kind of go through, readjust where we are in Dynasty, go through some key points that we need to pay attention to when it comes to these players that got signed and traded and re-signed in Dynasty Fantasy Football and in the NFL. Starting with Kenneth Walker going to the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a 3-year, $43 million deal, so pretty big yearly contract for the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's something that I was not expecting them to do. They didn't have too much cap space, but once they traded Trent McDuffie, it was pretty much game on for a running back like Kenneth Walker. So Kenneth Walker is a 25-year-old workhorse capable running back. He's going to get running back one touches and opportunity. He was kind of somewhat splitting work with Zach Charbonnet and still finished near the top of fantasy football rankings last season. So I expect a huge workload increase for Kenneth Walker this season. And working with Andy Reid, he's going to be in a top 5 red zone efficient offense. So, I mean, you have the likes of a quarterback of Patrick Mahomes. You're going to produce high fantasy numbers and you're going to get a lot of red zone looks at the running back position. And the Kansas City Chiefs last year were 31st in rushing plays of 10 plus yards or more. And Kenneth Walker was top 3 in that category for individual running backs. So it is a huge get for the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you have Kenneth Walker in your dynasty leagues, you have to be feeling on cloud nine that he went to Kansas City as opposed to some of these other options. And Malik Willis going to the Miami Dolphins on a 3-year, $67.5 million contract. This is big for Malik Willis. I thought he was going to go to Arizona, but honestly, him going to Miami makes a lot more sense. Jeff Halfley's there. He's familiar with the Green Bay coaching staff that went over to Miami. And this one gives him contract stability, kind of the same thing as Kenneth Walker. It's a multi-year deal for, I think, about market value for what people were expecting from Malik Willis. But honestly, for a guy with 6 starts on his career, it is surprising that he got this much money from the Miami Dolphins, especially when they were looking to offload some of that money with Tua Tagovailoa's contract eating up a lot of their cap space. So obviously, with a move like this, Tua Tagovailoa is out of Miami. Malik Willis steps in. He's got offensive pieces to the likes of Devon Achane, Jalen Waddle. We'll see if they add somebody like a Carnell Tate or a Mekhi Lemon or a Jordan Tyson in the draft. And then we'll see where they go with tight end. They re-signed Greg Dulcich as well. So Malik Willis does have a little bit of opportunity here to shine in Miami. He was super efficient, like elite efficiency when he did get the starts and playing time in Green Bay. So we'll see what happens when he gets more of that playing time and when he has the full reins of an offense. Travis Etienne goes to the New Orleans Saints on a 4-year, $52 million contract. And the biggest thing here is where does this leave Alvin Kamara? There's rumors coming out that Alvin Kamara won't be a part of the Saints team, that he's going to be, traded or released here pretty soon. So if the Saints can't find a trade market for Alvin Kamara, he's going to be off the team. So Travis Etienne is pretty much going to be the only running back in this offense. And what he did last year in a kind of cluttered running back room and kind of made himself the number one running back in that room, he is going to do the same thing here in New Orleans. And with a coach like Kellen Moore, who's known for utilizing running backs and having, top 15 running backs in fantasy football, I think he's going to be utilized kind of like a Saquon Barkley was that first year he was there in Philadelphia. And the biggest thing is once Kamara leaves, there's high receiving upside in this offense for Travis Etienne. And the focal point will be for Tyler Shuck to find Travis Etienne and kind of let him be his outlet and his relief valve when things kind of break down. Travis Etienne will be able to put in high receiving work and be kind of close to an RB1 in Dynasty Fantasy Football for the next couple seasons. And J.K. Dobbins goes back to Denver on a 2-year, $20 million deal. Obviously, the injury history is a big thing, but he will have the same role that he had last season. The only question is, how much did R.J. Harvey improve his snap and share volume when J.K. Dobbins was out? That's to be seen. We'll see more of that as we play throughout the season. So there's not much we know about how much the role has decreased or increased for J.K. Dobbins. If it's the same as last year, that's great for J.K. Dobbins fantasy owners, not so great for R.J. Harvey owners. And for R.J. Harvey owners, you wish that J.K. Dobbins would have went somewhere else because that means that more than likely R.J. Harvey was going to get, the starting role and be kind of the early down and kind of play maybe a 3-down role. But this kind of confirms Sean Payton's trust in Dobbins. We talked about it a little bit earlier this year that Sean Payton loves his dual running back, committee running back rooms like Latavius Murray, Alvin Kamara. He's had multiple over the year, even Kamara and Mark Ingram. Like he's had multiple over the year that have just killed dynasty owners because he loves to run two running backs out there. I think he likes, the flexibility in his offense that he can use two different running backs in two different styles. So that's a big thing for Dynasty and for RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins over the next 2 seasons at least. And maybe one of the biggest signings in recent memory was Mike Evans actually leaving Tampa Bay and going to San Francisco. And not just for a 1 year contract, which is kind of what I was expecting. I was expecting like a 1 or 2 year contract, kind of like with an opt out in the second year. But no, he got a 3 year deal for 60 million. Kind of crazy, but with a 3 year contract, we'll just have to wait and see how long that production can last. Is Mike Evans going to be this piece for the 49ers that they've been missing, kind of like that red zone target and a guy who on third down that's not named Christian McCaffrey can go get it. And obviously Kyle Shanahan, he has a receiver friendly offense all the time. So Mike Evans will greatly benefit from being in a Kyle Shanahan offense, and it won't be as cluttered as a wide receiver room. He will be the number one option in this receiver room for the next 3 seasons, more than likely. And Isaiah Likely goes and meets John Harbaugh in New York. He signs with the Giants on a 3 year, $40 million deal, and we see an immediate jump into the tight end one range as Isaiah Likely finally is out of the Mark Andrews shadow. And with a guy like Wandale Robinson going to a different team, there's a lot of slot snaps that are available, and Isaiah Likely played the big slot snap role, like the in quotes big slot. 73% of his snaps in 2025 were in the slot. Now we're going to probably see that number decrease, but there's going to be a lot of two tight end sets where he might run out of the slot and he might be, it won't be considered a two tight end set, but it will be him and Theo Johnson out there as two tight end options. So I'd like to see how they use him and what John Harbaugh's plans are for him now that Mark Andrews is not in the way. And Alec Pierce signing with Indianapolis on the biggest free agency re-sign contract of all time for a wide receiver is bonkers. Like, I mean, I expected him to get a little bit of money, but this is crazy money for Alec Pierce. So no more Pittman too. We'll jump on him next. He got traded to the Steelers. So now Alec Pierce is the guy in Indianapolis, and they paid him like he is the guy. And I listened to a couple interviews with Alec Pierce afterwards, after his re-signing, and he talked about how Daniel Jones was pretty much a deciding factor on whether he was going to stay in Indy because apparently the Patriots were going to offer him more money than the Colts offered him, but he was so in tune and liked what Daniel Jones and his relationship was there in Indianapolis that he decided to stay with the Colts. And he led the NFL in 2025 in yards per catch. So every target he was getting, he was making it worth it. So now that Michael Pittman is out of that wide receiver room, it's him and Josh Downs as of right now. They'll probably add somebody on the back end here in the draft. And then, I mean, now the Indianapolis Colts wide receiver room runs through Alec Pierce. And like we said, Michael Pittman Jr. got traded to the Steelers and signed a new extension for a 3 year, $59 million deal. So some of the big things is Aaron Rodgers actually the quarterback in Pittsburgh this year? And I think this move was more for Pittsburgh to make sure that whoever the next quarterback is set because now they have DK and Michael Pittman over the next 2 to 3 seasons. And Pittman is entering his prime. He still has 3 to 4 good seasons at age 28. So don't expect for his high volume receiving upside to fall off here just because he's beside DK Metcalf now and he might not be considered, wide receiver one. I still think that he has wide receiver one potential, and especially in a Mike McCarthy led offense, that is a plus for Michael Pittman. He's going to get a ton of targets. He's going to be the target machine there, where DK is going to be more of that big play guy. So expect Michael Pittman, especially this year if Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback, to have a ton of targets this season. And like we talked about with Malik Willis moving on, now we have Tua. It has been reported that he is more than likely going to sign in Atlanta for the 1 year league vet minimum. So a big get for Atlanta. Now they have two lefty quarterbacks, so there's no excuse for wide receivers dropping footballs now that you have both lefties, throwing the same spin on the ball versus the right-hander. So Tua, honestly, this is probably the best situation that he could fall into. He's going to have elite weapons on offense. Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. I mean, it doesn't get much better than what he has right now in Atlanta. And this is going to be a prove it year, and this is kind of make or break for Tua as far as dynasty goes. So if he can prove that, he is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL and can do it with these weapons, then he's going to have another team that is going to want him next year. So can he turn into the next Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones? That's to be seen, but this is the perfect situation to do it. And the two next big things are, can he stop the turnovers? Obviously, the turnovers last year, he had a career high in interceptions. It wasn't a great season as far as the likes of Tua has had. And is Michael Penix still the future in Atlanta? That is to be seen, to be determined. And especially with his injury history, if Tua gets the start and takes off and ends up playing well, Tua could get an extension for the Falcons. And a small running back market move was Tyler Algier to the Cardinals on a 2-year, $12 million deal. I think this completely knocks them out of the Jeremiah Love conversation at pick number 3 or a trade back, especially with the Saints and the Chiefs also signing Kenneth Walker and Travis Etienne. I think all three of those teams are out of that Jeremiah Love sweepstakes in the NFL draft. But if the Cardinals decide to move on from James Conner or just have Tyler Algier be the main back and James Conner be a number 2, you're going to see a spike in value for Tyler Algier. You'll see his rookie season where he did rush for, I think it was about 1,000 yards. So the volume increase alone will be enough to have Tyler Algier kind of become your flex or running back 3 option. So it is a good situation there in Arizona for Tyler Algier. So now, how much red zone volume will he get? Will he get compared to what he got in Atlanta? Because Atlanta basically used him as a goal line running back and short down and distance running back. So I'd like to see how much Arizona uses him in the same light. And like I said, now that he's kind of running back 1, probably in that situation, what happens with his volume share? Now Trey Benson becomes irrelevant. The front office that drafted him has now basically turned full fledged against him, and Trey Benson will not be in any dynasty roster probably moving forward. I mean, maybe if you have super deep dynasty leagues, you can stash him in the back end, or if you're able to keep a taxi squad player for longer than 2 years for some reason, you could stash him. But Trey Benson becomes basically nothing in dynasty. And Travis Kelsey comes back to the Kansas City Chiefs on a 1-year, $12 million deal. And guys, this has got to be the last season for sure, right? Like Taylor Swift is definitely calling this dude up and telling him to come home. Like, there's no way that Travis Kelsey isn't done after this season. So, plan on this year being the absolute last year that Travis Kelsey is in an NFL uniform. And rumors started to swirl late into last season that next year he would be a usage player, kind of being a role player, not really the number one guy in the offense. So let's see how Kansas City drafts. Obviously, signing Kenneth Walker now that opens them up to draft a wide receiver like a Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, or Jordan Tyson. So obviously, they need some help on defense, especially at corner now that they've lost 2 of their starters in Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie. So we'll see how they move on from these players who have moved on from their team. We'll see how they move on in the draft and where they turn things into offensive players or defensive players. And with Kenneth Walker signing that we mentioned, the offense can become super run heavy. So if they become super run heavy and lean on Kenneth Walker just because Patrick Mahomes is coming off of that injury, we could see, play action roles where Travis Kelsey does end up having, really great games because they're able to feed it off the run. And one that I'm super excited for because I am a Wan'Dale Robinson dynasty owner. Wan'Dale Robinson goes to the Tennessee Titans where he rejoins Brian Dable on a 4-year, $78 million contract. And this system fit is going to be great. Brian Dable knows exactly how to use a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson. So I'm super excited for Wan'Dale, for him to get this chance in the slot in Tennessee with Cam Ward. So obviously with Tennessee having a top 5 draft pick, we'll see if they go some kind of receiver, especially in the second round. That's where I expect them to go receiver. So we'll see how the likes of Calvin Ridley come back, what they decide to do with him. But they play 2 completely different receiver roles. So I'd like to see how Wan'Dale Robinson does in that slot role in Tennessee. And Rashid Shaheed comes back to Seattle. Will his role change with a new offensive coordinator? So obviously we have Clint Kubiak going over to the Raiders, and now you have a new offensive coordinator. How is that offensive coordinator going to use Rashid Shaheed in this season and in the next couple? Because obviously he's probably going to be there for a couple years. So the 3-year, $51 million contract does show good signs because of the contract size and length. So they see potential in him to kind of be that wide receiver too. I think Cooper Kupp might move on after this season that's coming up. So will Rashid Shaheed remain the wide receiver 2, or will it be Tucker competition with the likes of a Cooper Kupp or a Torrey Horton? And Rico Dowdle goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Something small. Kenny Gainwell went over to Tampa Bay to pair up with Bucky Irving. So Rico Dowdle came in and will fill in that Kenny Gainwell role in Pittsburgh on a 2-year, $12.2 million contract. And the biggest thing is that he has familiarity with Mike McCarthy from their time spent together in Dallas. And now the question is the same question that we had last year with Jalen Warren: who will be the early down back? Who will get the goal line carries? Who will get the receiving work? And I think this is just a matter of it's a high floor, low ceiling play. I don't know. There's no way to predict exactly how Mike McCarthy is going to use him over Jalen Warren. So we will see what happens there as far as workload and share. We're just going to have to wait till about 3 weeks into the season and really determine where Rico Dowdle and Jalen Warren sit. And the last big name as of right now, they just announced it this afternoon: Romeo Dobbs to the New England Patriots on a 4-year, $70 million contract. So this is a significant boost in his opportunity. Obviously, staying in that cluttered room in Green Bay just did not feel like an option for Romeo Dobbs. He really wanted to branch out and get his own volume share and become possibly the wide receiver one on a team. And this long term deal as a top target will lead to that opportunity that he's looking for. So he's going to get, kind of the same production from Drake May as Jordan Love would give him, but he's going to be getting a ton more targets and volume in general when it comes to that New England Patriots offense. So we'll see what they do in the draft as well. We'll see if they add a couple pieces in free agency. There's still a lot of time before anything else can happen. So let's see where things go in New England if they add a couple more pieces and where Romeo Dobbs stands after the draft and after free agency is done heading into the season. And there obviously will be more free agency talk and more free agency news that breaks. So we will do another video once we kind of get a bigger collection of the next couple batch of free agents that sign two teams. And we'll see where we can go from there and what dynasty keys and outcomes that produces. So if you're excited for content like that, make sure to subscribe and like and share and comment below what was the most surprising contract signing or what was your most favorite contract signing. But other than that, that's all I got for you today. We'll see you in the next free agency video. Peace, dope, and love.